The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Hear the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to John.
Glory to you, O Lord.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name, which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please, would you be seated? For many years, I was a chaplain with the British Army of the Rhine. And on one year, I met a man whose story I would like to share with you tonight. At the beginning of the Second World War, he volunteered and joined up. And he served through the whole of the Second World War in various theaters. And at the end of the war, in 1945, he was posted to Germany, to the British sector. And he spent Christmas 1945 in Germany, and he said it was a very strange feeling. He said what everybody wanted was to be at home with their families, but that was not to be. And he said at the same time, it was really hard to believe, after all the brutalities of war, that peace had really come. And there was an unspoken fear that even now something dreadful could happen. On Christmas Eve, he was tasked to take a patrol out. And as they were leaving the camp, they saw the Red Cross parcels arrive. And so they filled their pockets with their share of the sweets and the chocolate, because they rather suspected by the time they got back, the other chaps would have had all of them. And they went out into the war-torn streets of Germany. It had been snowing, and in the snow, some of the jagged edges had been softened. And in fact, with the light moonlight, it really looked rather pretty. Well, the patrol went quietly until nearly the end, and then they came across a large building with lights inside it, flickering. Was this perhaps some dissident group planning an attack? What an irony that would be. He positioned his men so that they could get covering fire, and then he himself went up to the building. The windows had all been blown in, and he could see from the shadows on the wall. There was a crowd of people there, and there was somebody talking softly to them. And he thought to himself, I better have a look inside. And he made his way carefully to the window. And as he raised himself to look through the window, so all the crowd suddenly stood up. And he was overcome with fear. This dreadful thing that they all feared looked as though it was about to happen. And at the height of his fear, something happened, which was this, I hope. Even as he listened, he felt his fear ebbing away. And in its place, a sense of hope. Hope that the war really was over. Hope that peace had come. And perhaps one might say unwisely, but so it did not prove in the event, he got his men to come with him into the back of the church. And they joined in the service, and they were warmly welcomed. And at the end of the service, they shared their sweets and their chocolates, particularly with the children. And friendships were born that night, and I met him 40 years after the event, and those friendships had been sustained. There is something special about the spirit of Christmas. It's quite amazing to think that a birth in a stable to insignificant parents in an insignificant village in an insignificant country 1,945 years before had had such an enormous impact. But it had. And here we are 2022 years later, and it can still have the same kind of impact. Tonight there's another war in Europe, and tonight there will be people who will have no heating, no power, no electricity, no water, and they will be dreaming of Christmas pasts and hoping of Christmas future. And perhaps even in our own country, there will be people who go to bed tonight without being able to heat their homes properly, and maybe their Christmas meal will be from a food bank. And they dream of Christmas past, and they hope for Christmas future. And so do we. I hope that all of your Christmases are going to be wonderful and lovely. But I hope too that something of the spirit of Christmas that causes us to think about other people, to have love for other people, to work for peace, to work for justice, will also flow through that amazing event 2022 years ago. And so I got a little prayer that I hope will be God's gifts to us this Christmas, but also God's gifts to all those
about whom we're thinking tonight. May the humility of the shepherds and the perseverance of the wise men and the joy of the angels and the peace of the Christ child be God's gifts to his world tonight.